It's a tremendous tragedy that we have become the country that has the highest level of incarceration in the world.
America is going to arrest more than 11 million people this year. That's about 21 people a minute.
Even though we lock up a high percentage of our population, we still have a problem with crime.
Whenever I give a mandatory minimum, I'd say about 80% of the time I think it's unjust.
Wait a minute, I'm backing you up.
Yeah.
80% of the time?
Sure.
If we don't have punishments that fit the crime, we're going to drive people into our welfare system and back into a life of crime in ways that we all would agree we don't want to happen.
You have to ask yourself, do we need to put this person, the nonviolent crime or victimless crime, there are other ways to punish them than spending $25,000 to $50,000 a year putting them in a box.
Some politician may be happy going back to their constituents and say, oh, I really hammered these folks, but that hammer comes at a cost to the rest of society.
And it's a reminder to us that the current system hasn't worked. It has taken mild offenders and turned them into hardened criminals, and that's the opposite of the direction we want to go in.
We have to continually, from the conservative standpoint, remind our prosecutors that we expect them to act as a filter, not just a hired gun.
One place that we don't pay much attention to is in our prisons.
She was shackled during her pregnancy, labor, delivery, and after having her baby, violating her rights.
That sounds something out of the Middle Ages, and yet in some of our prisons, that's policy.
Prisoners are human beings bearing human dignity, and sexual assault is always morally wrong.
Now you've got a part of you that's yours, and that's your body, and nobody should ever be able to violate your personal space. That's yours that nobody can ever take away from you. And he even took that away. That rape was not a part of my sentence.
There are levels of inhumane abuse that should be stopped, and that every person is a human being, whether they're a convicted criminal or not.
Back in 1992, I was arrested for the murder of a barmaid in Phoenix, Arizona, convicted solely on bite mark evidence, sent to death row, and finally in 2002, we had DNA evidence that matched another man, and I was subsequently released, and he was arrested for the murder. I spent 10 years, 3 months, and 8 days in prison for it.
Going back and either overturning a judge or a jury's decision is a very hard thing to do, but when the evidence piles up after the fact, we need to be willing to go back and reconsider those convictions in the interest of preserving liberty.
In 2014, the government took more money from people than all the burglars in the country together. This is wrong. Criminal justice reform will stop this.
I don't know why this is so hard for people who work in government. Leave our stuff alone.
The criminal justice system is a government monopoly. You know it's going to cost more than it should. You know it's going to work for the people who run it, not for the average citizen.
Conservatives want to see reform in government generally, and they definitely want to see reform when it comes to our criminal justice system.
So we have to begin to focus on watching the courts, the judges, the prisons, to make sure they serve the general good instead of just the bureaucrats involved.
You can't do this at the federal level if liberals are leading the way. Conservatives need to lead.